So there's a lot of flexibility where you don't actually have to do anything that you don't want to do. That's liberating for me, I think.
One of the most interesting things that PAs can do, PAs or NPs, is to work in locums. I've shared my story here about working locums and some of the information that I had to pass along. But today I'm going to interview another PA. His name is Vivek, and he has done something a little unique. He actually went from having a surgical background when he was working permanent jobs to working locums in primary care. He's going to tell us about how he did that, what he has found out about locums, his experiences with contract negotiations, pay and taxes, and just all those questions that people often have about locums. Lots of good information if it's something that you're considering, or if you just want to hear about somebody else's experiences. So stay tuned. Before we get there, though, I'm very excited to share with you the latest acquisition in my Glanimals collection. For those of you who don't know, I call animals wearing glasses Glanimals. Isn't he adorable? It says Huff, which is Czech for wolf. I love my shirt and just wanted to show you my latest collection because I'm so excited. Thank you, Vivek, for being here on the channel today. It's a pleasure having you here.
It's nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
What has been your career path since you graduated and what has brought you to locums?
Originally, when I first graduated, I was working as kind of like a float PA in a level 2 trauma center community hospital where they had a bunch of surgical services like thoracic surgery, vascular urology, ortho, and general surgery. And they kind of all shared PAs, just doing a bunch of all surgical subspecialty stuff, bedside procedures, patient management on the floor, doing things in the OR. And then I kind of wanted to focus a little bit more on orthopedic surgery. So I had joined a private practice group at that time where I was also doing interventional pain management at the end. The only sort of piece of the puzzle for me that was missing was primary care. And so I had interviewed for a corrections facility and I got that role in December of 2021, and I've been doing that since then.
Most locums companies won't hire you in a particular field unless you have worked in that area. So what did you encounter when you were going for locums?
There were definitely challenges. I think that was sort of the benefit in working at a corrections facility because they were not so stringent in their requirement to have prior experience. At that point, I'd been a PA for about 5 years. So I was pretty comfortable in my clinical judgment and my ability to have, work through a differential and formulate a plan and things like that. I was able to make a case for myself to say, hey, look, just because I don't actively manage, diabetes every single day doesn't mean that I don't know my way around an insulin sliding scale or metformin management or glipizide or all of the other modalities that could be used to treat different things. And so they were kind of saying, okay, I think that's reasonable. Can you do other things like bedside procedures? And that was the big selling point is can you do bedside procedures in addition to being able to do the primary care stuff? And so that was definitely something that helped.
Yeah, because in corrections, it's kind of a mixture between primary care and urgent care, right?
There's a lot of sort of musculoskeletal injuries, there's back pain stuff, there's, radiculopathies, there's infections, there's bedside procedures that need to be done, dressing changes, wound management. So there's a tremendous amount of procedures that you could be doing.
Was there any other issues like, what about being covered for liability insurance, anything like that, that was a problem moving from surgical to primary care?
Absolutely, there was. So the agency that I was supposed to be staffed through, they were ultimately not able to get me malpractice because of my lack of experience. But the client, the facility, they really needed someone to kind of, help out. And they wanted someone who was willing to do that, not just, someone who had to go and do that. And so I was very eager. I was very willing to learn. And so because of that reason, they said, okay, we will give you malpractice. We'll give you the same coverage that you would get at, say, a hospital, for example.
And now you won't have any problems going forward because now you've got experience. And I think that's important for people to realize, especially in locums, but I think it pertains to all areas of medicine. If you want to do something and you're looking for an opportunity, they are out there. You just have to look hard for them, and you have to probably be willing to be open to location.
Ultimately, I think what I'm recognizing and I'm learning is that, when you're doing these contract negotiations and you're doing locums and you're having these conversations, you're ultimately talking to people. And if you're able to make a reasonable case for, why they should hire you, I think, you are going to be in a pretty good position.
So are you working in your home state or did you end up going to another state?
Yeah, so one of the things that I personally love about locums is that I can travel to anywhere as long as I'm licensed to go there. And so I'm originally from New Jersey. Now, currently, I'm in Vermont. I'm about 15 minutes from the Canadian border. I'm up in ski and bear country. And so it's been absolutely phenomenal.
When you made the decision to go to locums, tell us a little bit more about that. Was it just something that you just wanted to try, or were there specific reasons for it? And did you just kind of dive in, or did you do research?
For me, it was this 2 year long progression of, do I kind of want to travel and leave my social circle behind for the sake of, these contracts, which would be absolutely exciting, and get to do different things and learn different things and see how healthcare is being delivered in different parts of the country. So that was, I think, one of the biggest driving factors for me was this sort of professional and intellectual curiosity of what is medicine like elsewhere where I haven't experienced it, and how can I get better from experiencing different models of healthcare and hospital systems and things like that. That was, one part of it. I think the other part of it was also sort of this contract negotiation aspect of locums, where you have to be able to kind of decipher whether things are good for you or not in a very quick, amount of time. You kind of have to decide, okay, I'm going to commit to this contract and I'm going to move across the country and go do that. But for me, I think that was one of the most exciting things, because I could say, okay, great. It's kind of like PA school, 3 month rotation, you're finished, and then you move on. And if you don't like it, great. If you like it, even better.
One of the great things about locums is sometimes you can work in a small clinic or you can work in a huge hospital or in anywhere in between or like in a corrections facility. So if you were confused about like would I do better in a small clinic or would I do better in a big, hospital facility, instead of just getting hired on someplace permanent and have your fingers crossed, you get a chance to see what it's like. And I do feel that locums can be an answer for a lot of people who are facing burnout because it's not it's not just the practicing medicine. In fact, I don't think that that's the biggest contributor to burnout. I do think it's the pressures that you get a lot of times from administration and the office politics, if you happen to be in certain situations. And with locums, it's not that you're completely free of that, but you land in a place and, even if you're there for 3 months, it takes several weeks to a month to even realize what the politics are in that particular place and what the pressures are. And then, then you're a short timer. You're going to be out of there soon.
Absolutely. And I think the best thing about locums is the ability to actually say, I don't want to. No, I'm not available for that. I'd like to go on a vacation at this time, or I would like to maybe focus on another contract, or I've got this per diem thing going, or, I'm interested in this telemedicine thing. So there's a lot of flexibility where you don't actually have to do anything that you don't want to do. And that's liberating for me, I think.
What have you found in locums compared to your permanent jobs in the past? Like, are we talking comparable salary? Do you think you're making more? What are your thoughts on that?
So I think there's ways that you could make comparable salary, and then there's ways you could potentially make more money. I think it really depends on the nature of the relationship that you're going to be getting into in regards to the locums. Sometimes you'll go through an agency. Sometimes you may be really lucky, like I was, and I was able to go directly to the facility and I was completely able to negotiate my own rates. When you have an agency involved, there's a big chunk that kind of just go somewhere, and you get your rate, which is pretty good compared to what you were making before. But then you have to take taxes into consideration, Medicare, Social Security. You may not be having like 401k match, for example. Those costs definitely have to be taken into account. So I think there is a point where the prices don't match to the point where it's worth it to make that transition, where you may be better off in your W-2 job with a nice 401k match. You have maybe 4 weeks off of PTO, and that's a pretty good situation. In my experience, I think for me, salary has significantly gone up to the point where it's definitely been worth my time to take the risk and sort of take the plunge and go for it.
Do you feel that's because you are negotiating directly with the client and not going through an agency?
So based off of my understanding of, PA salary reports, reimbursement rates, and estimates of that, I'm able to, have a pretty good price gauge on what my billing rate should be. Absolutely helps to go through, directly to the facility. That's the ideal way. That definitely comes with some challenges. You may have to get your own malpractice if they don't provide it for you. You may have to do a lot of your own credentialing. Fortunately for this, it's a standalone facility, so credentialing was very, very straightforward. But I think, definitely there could be some challenges in working directly with the facility.
So how did you actually find that opportunity? Because I work locums, but it's always been through an agency. So how did you even find out about that this corrections facility needed somebody?
Through the agency, I didn't know what I didn't know at the time. And so I didn't know how to make these connections. I'm starting to learn now. I think LinkedIn is a great source. I think, just like in every other business model, cold calling is pretty great. It's a matter of, establishing a connection. And one of the things that I sort of do is I'll call hospitals within a certain geographical area and I'll try to talk to their HR department, or can I talk to, your medical staffing office and somebody who's in charge of like a hiring manager-esque position, and then I'll send my resume out. And then I'll just say, hey, if there's anything that you could do, these are all of these skill sets that I can, provide services for. So it definitely helps to bring that to the table.
So I guess I'm just a little confused. Right now, the corrections job that you're working, are you working that through an agency?
No, so because of the malpractice issue, the agency had to help. Absolutely, you cannot go through a contract if there's no malpractice involved. And so they took accountability and they were great about it. And they just said, look, we're going to back out. You can work directly with this facility. So I got really lucky. Now, the benefit of that is that, the facility that I'm with, they're all over the country. So if I wanted to deal directly with them, I can certainly go ahead and do exactly that. I think orthosurgery is absolutely my ideal. I jump on it every chance I get. And if I can't do that and I'm kind of sitting around on the bench and a primary care contract comes up,
Yeah.
there's no reason why I should say no to that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And having options. And as a primary care provider, I've worked primary care. I've worked some like a walk-in primary care, so a little bit of urgent care, and then some occupational medicine. So there is some diversity when you work family practice. But I think you're right. Especially if you're looking at locums as a long-term thing, the more areas that you can work in and that you have experience in, it just opens way more doors. How many states are you licensed in, and what is your plan?
I think one of the issues I was having with my W-2 job was I was working really, really hard, but I wasn't really feeling like I was being rewarded for that hard work. There were not as many bonuses as I would have liked. There weren't as many leadership opportunities as I would have liked. And so the benefit of locum is the harder I work, the more money I can make. The busier I can be, the better it is for me. And so that's sort of the way I've tried to go about it. And one of the things that I realized really, really early in the game is if you don't have a license, it's pretty hard to get rapid fire contracts. I did a little bit of a cost benefit analysis and I figured, some licenses, they're only like $25. Other licenses, they're $100. Some licenses are a little bit more expensive. And so I decided to kind of draw out a map of, trail map of where I'd like to go in the country, depending on the season, depending on activities and things like that. And so I'm currently pending board approval. I should have 25 licenses.
The thing about having licenses in so many states is you have to know the licensing, requirements in each state. And so if you're something to think about, if you're looking at getting multiple licenses, you'd probably need to have some kind of chart or something so you can remember when you're working in different states, what can I prescribe in this state? What can't I, and all the different rules and regulations. Did you decide to get licensed in Alaska or Hawaii?
Yeah, that's one of my dreams. I want to experience, 24 hours of sunlight while seeing patients in a rural community. And that sounds an awesome way for me to spend my time.
Living and working in Hawaii sounds great, but I think long term, a lot of people get kind of island fever. You're a long way from anywhere, and it's a great way to experience Hawaii for a while to work locums, but then be able to come back. And also the cost of living, it's so high there. You don't have to worry about that when you're working locums, especially if you're in a contract where the agency is paying for the housing or you've negotiated a high enough rate without the housing. What are your thoughts on that? Do you prefer to get a package deal where it's one price for salary, but they're including all your travel, or do you like to negotiate it differently?
At this point, I'm interested in doing 3 to 6 month contracts. So I like places where I could be comfortable. I like to cook, so I like places that have kitchens. I like places that have, big backyard for my dog. And so it's been easier to go through Airbnb.
For those who may not, be understand locums and things, normally, if they're advertising a job with a rate, it includes flight to get there, rental car, and then the housing. So if you are somebody that has a home base, like you have parents or a brother that has an extra room or something like that, if you have like a home base, when you're out working for months at a time, you're not paying any housing, And some people I know even get rid of their car, like they'll just rent a car when they come back into their hometown if they're going to be off for a couple of weeks. Renting a car for a couple of weeks ends up being cheaper than paying for a car for months at a time when you're not there using it. So depending on how you want to work it, it really can be a way to make some good money. I also think it's kind of smart, like with you talk about negotiating a rate that doesn't include travel. There's always ways to find deals, and a lot of times I could range things a lot cheaper than what they were going to put in their budget. So that's another way that you can get that hourly rate up and save more money.
I would really like to touch on the fact and the importance of opening up an LLC when you do locums.
Yeah, I haven't done that. So you've done that? You've got an LLC?
I do, yeah. And I think that's made me feel very much at ease in regards to a lot of my overhead costs, which are not really directly upon me now to fulfill those obligations.
I haven't gotten there yet to do the LLC, but I know that there are lots of people that advocate for doing that, that it can save you a lot of tax money down the road.
For me, it was pretty straightforward to open up. In the state of New Jersey, you have to either have an attorney open one up for you, or you have to have an accountant do that.
And if I'm not mistaken, if you have an LLC, the pay will go to the LLC. You are technically an employee of the LLC, so you can draw a salary, but you don't have to draw as much as all of the money that they paid. And so tax-wise, you only pay income tax on the salary you draw. The extra money that's sitting in the account, that's what pays for the expenses and things. So you're not being taxed on all of that money. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I'll definitely be able to answer that question much better April
Yeah.
2023.
Yeah.
But that is my understanding, yes.
Neither Vivek nor I are giving people tax advice at all. We're just kind of talking about our experiences and what we've heard and learned to give people an idea of what might be possible. Obviously, if you are looking at doing this, talk to your own accountant. What personality traits do you think that, people should have if they're considering locums?
There's a few that are really, really important in my opinion. I think initiative, taking the initiative, because now you will only work what you want to work. So that by definition means you have to go look for work. I think the other point in locums and what successful locum providers would look like is flexibility. It's very dynamic, and so consistency is something that's pretty hard to come by. And so if you are able to be flexible, you'll just be happier. The last thing, and that the biggest one is, be positive. Don't let the barriers and the trials and the tribulations really kind of get you down.
So you have to be a little bit comfortable with knowing that you're going to have to go through a learning phase every place that you work. But I think it does get easier once you've done that several times. You start knowing what questions you need to find out and being comfortable with asking and not knowing things.
Yeah. And I think, what I would add to that is I don't think anybody is really that much of a novice to that be flexible concept, especially as a PA. We've all done rotations. You're just expanding on it now and say, okay, I'm going to do this professionally now, and not because I have to do it every 4 weeks or 8 weeks.
You've only been working locums a relatively short time compared to the length of your career, but is it something that you have been pleasantly surprised with and you think you'll continue, or do you see yourself doing it for just a very short time and then going back to finding a full-time regular position?
No, I think, locums might be it for me moving forward. I really, really like the flexibility. I like the extra money, and I like that I can negotiate for these things, and it allows me to practice negotiation if anybody can enjoy that.
I get so excited when I hear other people talk about their experiences, especially with locums. And I would urge you, if you've ever thought about it, and especially if you're in the position to do it, where you have some flexibility in your life, I really do think it's an amazing experience and it opens up doors that you never even thought about. So check out these videos here if you want to see my story of what it's been like working in locums for me, or if you want to see the second half of Vivek's interview. You can also go to my main channel page for playlists of medical specialties and cool and unusual PA jobs. Thanks for joining me today. Take care, stay sane, and I'll see you next time on the Medicine Couch. Bye.